Hey, what's up guys? It's been ages. I actually recorded a vlog like a couple of months ago, which I couldn't upload because my new computer doesn't like this camera very much, so I have to keep stuff under 40 minutes long for it to be able to become one long file, and the program that's supposed to, basically the program that's supposed to make everything work and flow properly doesn't work on my computer because I bought a cheap piece of shit computer. Because the long and short of it is that my old computer, which was kind of fancy, had 3D Blu-ray and a bunch of stupid shit that only a crazy person like myself would enjoy, died a couple of days before I moved to South Korea, which is where I currently am living because I am a crazy person. I am currently studying Korean language along with a butt ton of people that have better reasons than me for being in this country. Most of them want to study here and then go back to their home countries and probably not give Korea a second thought. Good reason to want to learn Korean because you want to go to school here. Bad reason because it seems like a lot of them have no real interest in Korea after that. But, you know, who cares? I'm an idiot. I came here because of Gangnam Style, because of a movie plot, like a movie script I want to write, and because I like Korean movies, which is probably really bad excuses, but still more interesting than most people, which is just, I like the K-pop and the K-dramas. At least I want to do something with it. This is not about that. I wanted to make something that was about movies as well, but fuck that, we are keeping it to one thing. Today is the day that Wes Craven sadly... Okay, yesterday was the day that Wes Craven sadly passed. Actually, I know I sound very like, oh, whatever, he died, but I was actually kind of torn up about it. It was like one of those things where you, like, when you read it, when you just scroll. When I woke up this morning, you know, being on the east side of the world, like, the news from yesterday, late yesterday, is like morning news here. So it's like I just wake up, I go to my computer, see Wes Craven's face, and I'm like, what the hell has he done now? It's like, Wes Craven's dead, and like as soon as I read the words dead, and like brain cancer, like you do the whiplash thing. It's like, what? No. A lot of things can happen, but Wes Craven cannot be dead. But he is. Immediately, like, my thoughts go back to the importance of my childhood when it comes to horror movies. Wes Craven actually was a very important character in my first real love of film. I mean, I've always loved movies, I have, but, like, there are still points where that love goes from being, like, a passive enjoyment of it, like how most people say they love movies, and how you go from loving to obsessing over something. Like, I for some reason, that's something I come across a lot more than with any other genre. Is like, there are a lot of horror freaks, like people that are obsessed with horror movies, that people like start making low-budget horror movies because they love horror movies so much. Like, when it comes to film, I don't think there's any more hardcore fan base for any like genre of film than the horror movie fans. Because maybe because there's so many of them. But like so many horror movies, which means that it's easier for like people to flock to them. Also because there's such a big amount of movies, it's easier to find the ones that are specifically special for you. But it doesn't really matter why. Hang on, I have something in the back of my fucking throat. Well, there we go. It doesn't really matter why, but horror movie fans are freaks, like crazy people that like love things, like love horror movies like to an insane amount. Like, I have one friend whom I like, he's actually like probably my best friend. Like, if I would have to say like my best, I don't really have a best friend, but whenever like I have to bring someone up, he probably ends up there, even though I'm probably not his because he has closer friends than me. But he loves horror movies. He has more horror movies than I do. I think I know more about horror movie history and like the good horror movies, but he knows more about horror movies overall because he just watches anything. I still have some standards. Sorry that I'm wiping my forehead, but it's hot in here. I had to turn off the fan so I could talk. So Wes Craven died, which is terribly sad. Brain tumor, brain cancer. And it made me think about all the things, like, my horror movie phase when I was like 14. I was very late with horror movies, just like I was very late with violent video games. Because unlike most kids who try to sort of push things where they were like, oh man, we're going to stay up and we're going to watch a horror movie because mom and dad aren't here, they're not going to see it. I was very much the mature, like, when I was 12, I was kind of like, I had a chance to play Grand Theft Auto, I had a chance to watch horror movies, but I was kind of the guy who usually, I could tell when something was out of my maturity range, where I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this yet. So I would say to my mom, like, I would never push it. I'd be like, no, I'm not ready for this. And my mother was never really like, you can't watch this, because she... Shocker, my mom trusted my judgment when it came to films and games. She was not like, oh my god, the Grand Theft Auto is going to turn you into a psychopath, because she knew that I would not be playing something that I did not feel emotionally ready for. But when I first started getting into horror movies, I watched, like, the two most important horror movies for me when it came to this, like, my horror movie phase. I ironically watched them both with my mother, so I was not watching them by myself. I watched Halloween, which is still my favorite slasher movie, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, obviously, and Scream. And Scream was kind of the movie that, even though I wasn't into horror movies that much, like, spelling out the rules right away kind of helped define my understanding of horror and made me want to keep watching. And Wes Craven and Scream, and Scream 2 to a certain extent, really had a big impact on me in that regard. And that's why it's kind of perfect in a way, but not really perfect, and if death can be perfect in any aspect, that a couple of days ago, because I am currently having my break. I have a month-long break between the two courses in Korean. So I have an entire month in Seoul, which I'm going to be spending out as a tourist. But last break, which was a week long, unlike the month one now, I kind of went crazy and bought a Korean PlayStation 4 because I couldn't help myself. I bought a Korean PlayStation 4 and I bought Arkham Knight when it came out. And I thought it would end there, kind of. I was thinking, like, okay, I guess the games I'm going to be buying when I'm here is, I'm probably going to buy, I'm going to buy Arkham Knight, I'm going to buy Metal Gear Solid, and I'm going to maybe buy the Nathan Drake Uncharted collection. Maybe not even that, because that game comes out in a really bad time. It comes out when I'm in the middle of my course. Metal Gear Solid, comes out like tomorrow, so, I have a month to play through it. But there was a game that came out that I had only heard the title of, and I don't watch game trailers because I usually know, like, if a game comes out, I will feel the splash. Like, I subscribe to video game websites, newsletters, and I have them on Facebook. So, like, if a game comes out that's worth, like, my time, because I don't have that much money anymore. I used to buy games, like, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I had hundreds of Xbox 360 games. So I used to be hardcore into games. I used to want to be a game journalist, probably. But then I because I've been balancing back and forth with which is my bigger love, film or games. And I always said that there was a time there where I said I like games more, but I also admitted that the thing I like the most about games is when games take aspects from film and make them interactive. And to a certain extent, that is still true. When a game manages to take cinematic tropes and turn it into an interactive film, so to speak, that can be one of the most amazing experiences ever. The Last of Us, if anything, like The Last of Us went from being a game that I felt was like I was kind of disappointed in. Like, oh my god, I can't believe they didn't make Uncharted 4 so they could make this, because I felt it was too slow, and also it came out in a period I was very, very depressed. So I was not kind of in the mood to get into this game, this slow-moving game. But as I played through The Last of Us a second and a third time, I came to the point where I realized this is probably one of the best games I've ever played in my life. And it is currently, if I were to count, my second favorite game of all time, the first being Persona 4. Still off track, but I'm getting there. The whole thing about games and movies being able to, like, make something that is both is something that happens very, very rarely. I kind of wish it happened more often. But that's when the day before school let out, I get a bunch of reviews in my feed. I get a bunch of reviews from Metal Gear. But I also get reviews for a game called Until Dawn, which from the reviews, the first review I read was one by a guy named Patrick Klepek, who used to work at GiantBomb.com, which is one of the best video game websites around. Not because their coverage is the most amazing, but because they have a great community, and they have a great sense of humor, and they're a little more like dirty, which is kind of good, and their podcast is really, really good, or their podcasts. Patrick Klepek used to work there. He doesn't work there anymore, but one thing I knew about Patrick from their podcast was that he was, in some ways, a fucking asshole, seemingly, like with like his view on games. He would at certain points like make very blunt statements about game design, because actually, since he respected games to a point where like he did not like at one point he would call people that use cheat codes to break a game assholes on one of their podcasts, and that still grates me, because it's like they put the codes in the game for a reason so that you can't use them. Don't call me an asshole just because I want to break a game. But he really loves horror movies, like crazy, to the point where like I think he watched the Evil Bong movies and shit that I have not even seen. And he wrote this review saying that he loved this game, even though it was flawed, that yeah, you should play this game. And I was like, okay, fuck man, an interactive slasher movie? I gotta play that. And I actually got to the point where like I read the reviews, and then I woke, and then like in the middle of the night, because I haven't been sleeping very well, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, could not fall asleep again, and went onto YouTube and watched a bunch of video reviews, and realized that I don't have the money for this, really. I should not be buying this game no matter what, because I also know that I cannot keep myself in Metal Gear, so I can't even say that, well, technically this is the money that would be going to Metal Gear, because I'm going to buy Metal Gear tomorrow anyway. But I could not contain myself. And so I went and bought Until Dawn. And I think that even though Metal Gear is probably going to be the better game, I think Until Dawn is the forerunner for my very limited game of the year list. Because it's not really, and it's also kind of cheating, because like the game aspects of it are kind of like, I don't know. Until Dawn is essentially, for those of you who understand games, is essentially Heavy Rain, or Beyond Two Souls, if you want to use that instead. It's essentially Heavy Rain, but with horror movie tropes. And that, to me, is awesome. The premise is, I'm going to play very fast and loose with this, because I don't want to spoil this at all. I will get to a point where I will just say that the game is awesome, you should play it and stuff like that, but I will not spoil what it is, but I will get into some more spoilerific things towards the end, but nothing real big, because I don't want to spoil the story, and also I can't talk that long because the camera's going to die. But the game focuses on a group of friends that reunite after on the 1-year anniversary of a terrible event that happened up in the mountains in one of the 8 friends' family, like, lodge, because his family's obviously loaded. They reunite to try and deal with the past event that has happened. And it immediately becomes like very clear that, yeah, we have our stereotypes. The funny thing about this game is that the characters in the game are modeled after the real actors. So you have like a bunch of characters that are really, really, like, you know, iconic, people that you recognize. Like, you have the equivalent of the Virgin, which is Hayden Panettiere, which I love. I love Hayden Panettiere. So when I saw, like, I did not know it was her when I bought the game. I had not really checked that closely, so I did not know. But there are a bunch of people in this. Like, it's... I don't remember his name because I don't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that much. I've only seen, like, a couple of episodes. The dude who is, like, the turncoat, like, Blair or Blaine, I don't remember what his character's name is, and I don't remember his actor either, but, like... The dude who is, like, the double agent in S.H.I.E.L.D. Is in this game. He's sort of the, like, you know, the macho guy. You have Hayden Panettiere as sort of, like, the Virgin. And you have the guy whose family owns the house is Rami Malek, who is in a bunch of stuff. He was in Night at the Museum as, like, what is it, King Tutankhamun or whatever. He is also... he's also in, like, what was this old, like, Michael Rappaport sitcom that I used to watch called The War at Home. But of course, most importantly, he is I guess the titular Mr. Robot in the USA series Mr. Robot. And you have these characters. Oh, and you also have the bitchy character from the Sharpay stand-in from that terrible Jonas Brother Demi Lovato movie, Camp Rock. Megan Martin as, I guess, the bitchy girl. There are like two bitchy girls. There's like an Asian bitchy girl and a blonde bitchy girl. But you have all these characters. You have the virgin, the even more virgin. You have like the funny guy. You have like the you have like the second helpings, because of course there's been a breakup at one point, so like you have these characters that are clearly dating someone else just for the sake of it, like these poor bastards that, even though they were part of the friendship group before, are just kind of stuck in the middle between these characters who are just having a pissing contest. But you have all these character archetypes in this cabin as shit goes weird. I don't really even, at this point, I don't even fucking remember how the fuck things get started. I guess they just show up and things start going bad. People start like going to different locations, splitting up, and it's clear they're not alone. If things start going wrong, they start splitting up, people start wanting to have sex, all that goodness. And you're controlling it heavy rain style, you're walking around, you're talking to people, but most of it is just you walking around these scary, like semi-lit areas, and like picking up various objects. The game is very much like picking up based, like picking up stuff. Like you'll walk around and you like Resident Evil style, see blinking. Like so you'll walk around, sort of around the rooms. The camera angles are kind of Resident Evil-esque, but the controls are better. So like it will be like very cinematic camera angles, like something like it's up like on a wall, and you kind of feel like you're watched a lot because the camera moves like that. And you just move around the room. You see like little blinking things. You can pick it up. So like if you see something, you'd be like, ooh. You just look around, it might say something on the back. And they're like, it's very much about collecting clues. And the cool thing about this game is the fact that it has this thing called the butterfly effect. Which, yeah, you know, if you've seen the movie, which I honestly haven't. I never saw the butterfly effect, but I know the concept. Is that, like, depending on how characters interact, when certain things happen, quick time events will pop up, or decisions will have to get made, like in a Telltale game or something, and you will have to be very much very much sit with the controller in your hand and be ready to like choose. It's like if two people argue, you have to side with one of them or tell them both to fuck off, and depending on what you do, the outcome might change to the point where at certain points, decisions like that can completely affect if you live or die, or like if someone lives or dies towards the end of the game. Because like every single thing counts. When I listened to the Giant Bomb cast, when they were talking about this, and this is a minor spoilers. It's nothing like important to the characters or anything. But there was a moment where one of my characters was going to look for something. They found an object, and like you had an option to find an object. If you did not go off the beaten path, like if you did not stray from what the character, because you have another character with you who's walking in front of you. If you do not stray from what that character is doing, you won't find this thing. And I found this object, and my character just shows this object to the other guy. It's like, oh, look at this, and later on in the game, like 3 or 4 chapters later, because the other character's like, oh, that's cool, picks up the object, then puts it down a little further away. And later on in the game, there is an action sequence where that item plays an integral part. I don't know what happens if that item is not there, but if I had not found that item earlier in the game, when I get to that point where there is actually confrontation happening in this area, that item will not be in view, meaning that the character that I'm playing as will not be able to defend themselves with that weapon. So it's kind of fun to know that even if everything is sort of going towards the same thorough line, like everything is sort of heading towards the same goal, that it's more interactive and choices matter more, at least more than they did in Heavy Rain, where everything sort of felt like, okay, there are all these choices, and sure, characters can die, but that just means that you sort of like cut the story, like the story just sort of cuts, which really, really sucks. Because you just like, okay, fine, the game is either over now, or at least this character is just gone, which probably means that everything's going to go bad for everyone, and this game is all of a sudden like 4 hours shorter. I'm going to get back to that, because that's a problem with this game too, in reverse, if anything. So anyway, the game is essentially just an interactive horror movie, and I love it. I had a blast playing through this game, and I can't wait to play it again, but I'm going to wait until Halloween, because I don't want to break this game too much. I played through it once, and I really, really like it. I'm going to sit on it for a while and think about it. I probably should have waited to do this, until I had sat on it for a while, but I wanted to get this out of the way because I have a little time, and because Wes Craven died, so, I want to talk about something horror-related. I was just going to write a long Facebook post, but, might as well put this up. That's the cutoff. I really, really recommend this game. If you have any love for horror movies, you should play this game. If you have a PlayStation 4, because it's PlayStation 4 exclusive, you should play this game. It has great actors, great visuals, it has a truly engaging story, even though it's cliched and stupid, because let's face it, it's a horror movie. It's supposed to be cliched and stupid. Even though I'm going to get to just talking about some, not spoilers, but I'm going to talk a little more about the story afterwards. But yeah, terrific acting, terrific visuals, like great atmosphere for most part, not too scary, but still kind of scary at certain points. And highly replayable, because the game keeps track of all your choices, and it becomes clear that, okay, if I hadn't done that, something else would have happened. I can go back and look at that and see what happens. I want to play through the game again, because you can also, of course, get any combination of who lives and who dies. And I'm not going to lie, I got to the last chapter and had somehow managed, because everyone can live, everyone can die. In fact, there were trophies in the game that I did not see. There are trophies for people who survive and people who die. There's specifically a trophy that is a trophy that, no one survived. Everyone got fucked. So there's a trophy for that. There's a trophy for letting every single character die. I don't even know how you do that, but alright. But I actually got to the last chapter, and I got towards the end, and I chickened out and took a guide, because I got to the point where oh, you know what, fuck this. I played this game for fucking 8.5 hours, and I somehow managed to get all my characters this far. I'm gonna fucking cheat. And I'm not gonna say that I don't feel any shame. I don't feel any shame at all, because guess what? To a certain extent, the interactivity of it is what I want, but that also means that I kind of want to get to choose. That was my problem with Mass Effect. Was that even though you have this grand story that they say you're in charge of, guess what? You don't really have any variety in different. Maybe this thing happens or this thing happens, but all the endings feel the same. I feel pissed off no matter which ending I choose. Here, I actually get to choose the ending I want. If I want to be a pussy and be like, yay, it's a horror movie, but everyone made it, which is stupid because horror movies aren't supposed to be like that, I can still do that, and I appreciated that. That's the end of everything. Play the game. If it sounds appealing, check other reviews that are better with actual pictures and photos and shit, but I recommend it. However, I'm just going to get into spoilers, not super spoiler story things, but I'm just going to say one of the game's major problems is that kind of the perfect cutoff was the game is, I think, it's 10 chapters long, and I heard several reviews point out that the game kind of ends up feeling like two different games. They're the back half feels very different from the first half. And I have to agree, that sentiment is absolutely, without a doubt, 100% true. I think I played through 4 chapters, 3 or half or 4 chapters beforehand. Because I didn't play it, I played it Wednesday night or something, and then I did not play it until tonight. And I kind of got a because I think it literally is the 5 first chapters have a very distinct feel, and then it changes. Because while you're playing the game, this psychiatrist, played by the Swedish actors Peter Stormare, or Peter Stormare as the Americans call him, is interviewing you, giving you questions like the psychiatrist from Silent Hill's Shattered Memories, and I think, not sure, but I think the answers you give him when he asks you questions will determine certain characters' reactions to each other, the way certain people look at each other. I almost think it comes down to the point, because at one point he asks you, what scares you more, this or this? And I think depending on what you answer, certain threats in the game will look different depending on it. But I don't know what to say without making it sound too spoilery. I know it's okay. The thing is that by being about 8 to 10 hours long, you know they can't play just one horror card. This game very much sells itself as being a horror slasher movie. But halfway through the game, it kind of switches to a different kind of horror movie, which is understandable because had they just played the slasher movie killer card for 10 hours, that probably wouldn't have worked. Because, let's face it, that would probably become very repetitive. They had to do something. In fact, I heard this game called The Cabin in the Woods of the video games, which is all fine and good, but the problem is The Cabin in the Woods I loved because I loved when Cabin in the Woods changed and flipped out, because The Cabin in the Woods is sort of like, a critique slash parody or spoof of a genre which has very many entries. And even though, slasher movies have very many entries, slasher games not so much. Unless what do you have, like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street on NES, like Halloween on Atari 2600. Like, no, we don't really have that many games like that. We don't have games that directly try to be movies where you play as the characters. So even though I still really enjoyed all of Until Dawn, I have to say the first half is my favorite part of the game, because that's where it straight up stays, the classic, oh my god, we shouldn't split up, the killer might be out there. I'm not saying that part, like that kind of feeling isn't still in the rest of the game, but it's the most contained and most focused in the first 5 chapters. And after that, it becomes a completely different story. Still a very enjoyable story. If anything, if I enjoyed the thrills more in the first 5 chapters, the overall atmosphere, the fear of having one of my characters die definitely increased in the second half, because that's when it becomes more clear that okay, now we're getting to the point where everyone can fucking die. Things can get fucking real. So I don't know, I guess I didn't want to say much more than that. Just say that be prepared that the story sort of does a left turn. This is my right hand, so I hope this is left turn the camera away. Whatever. The game does sort of go sideways at some point, story-wise. And that's not necessarily a negative thing. Just be prepared for it, because otherwise you might end up in a situation where you kind of get a little I was kind of not really prepared for that. Because it is good as long as you're prepared for it. Anyway, I really recommend Until Dawn. Finish the box again. I honestly, I'm really sad it's over. I doubt there'll be a sequel to this. I don't know why I doubt that, but it feels like this kind of game that, well, this is a one-time game. It'd be like the LA Noire of horror games. I'll sit here and be like, oh my god, I wish there wasn't another one of these, but there never will be. So buy it and make sure that there is a sequel. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to stop now. Have a good one. Annyeong.